Kim, you are my new best friend. I told you that. I've told my best friend that. I'm like obsessed with you. I like really wish I would have met you 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because I've been living in the same city as you, but I'm very lucky that I met you now. And welcome to the podcast.
I feel the same, and I'm glad that we're neighbors and we get to hang out all the time. And thanks for having me. And I love being here.
Honestly, you're like such hashtag goals for me because you're not much older than me, but your daughters are just a few years older than my three girls, and you have three girls. And you're such a cool human and you're such a good mom that I'm just like, I'm legit inspired to be like you in so many ways. And this whole work that you do, it's so fascinating because every time I hear you speak, I feel like I'm looking in a mirror, but under a different model. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation. So let's just start with give people a little background. You are a dietitian. You did just recently write a book. You have been working with clients and helped thousands and thousands of people to change their relationship with food. But why on earth do you care about this? Give us some background why this became your
Right, I
life
feel like
mission.
I need to get comfortable. Hold
Take
on.
it all off. For those listening, she's like, I'm taking off my jacket.
Oh my gosh.
Really cute jacket, by the way. She's very much a fashionista. Go
Love,
ahead.
love it. So that's it. Actually, it all started with fashion. You know what? I feel like I'm so passionate about talking to people about food and their relationship with food because there's so much stress and trauma and noise, truly. And I feel like I have this secret where I can help people find peace around how they eat and the way they feel when they do eat and when they're surrounded by their peers. And so you and I have talked about this privately, but truly, like, I got sick when I was 12 and it was 1986, and science back then was so completely different. And I was one of 8 people who had ever like experienced what I was going through. And I would go to UCLA every Wednesday for 5 years, but I was 12 when I started. And there was a moment when I was crying in the car. And you have young girls, and so you can just picture me, shy, quiet, and in pain. And my mom said to me the most loving thing ever. She said, "Don't cry. It's going to be okay. We're going to go shopping after." And I was like, "Don't cry. Got it. We're going to go shopping." And so my mind had this place that I got to go to anytime I wanted to cry. And I just like created this really deep rooted shopping problem. And somebody told me in high school, a doctor mentor of mine, that food could make a person sick or healthy. And I was sick. I was a sick kid. And so I latched onto that, and I'm going to be healthy. And I'm actually going to help people, like people who've helped me. I'm going to help people get healthy, and I'm going to do it with food. I had no idea about eating disorders or disordered eating. I didn't care about it. I just wanted to be healthy. I never really thought about food that was good, bad, things like that. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. And so I went to school, I studied it, and then I went to graduate school and studied it even more. Really kind of bored by the whole thing, truly. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have to cook like a muffin and, see how many holes are in this based on what ingredient is there. And it's too much. And then I immediately started a private practice, and I started putting people on diets exactly how I was trained to do it. If you eat this way, you're going to heal all of your metabolic dysregulation. You're literally not going to have any disease if you eat this way, is what I thought, is what I was trained to understand. And one of my very first clients lost 30 pounds. And I felt like a superhero. I'm like, I'm doing exactly what I set out to do. I got her off her cholesterol medicine, her blood pressure medicine. She lost weight and she's feeling great. And then she said to me, "I'm going to gain the weight back." And I said, "Why would you do that?" And she said, "Because my husband wants to be intimate with me all the time. And I was molested as a child." And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about the people living inside of their bodies. And as I started recognizing patterns, I started seeing my clients are eating the same way that I'm shopping. And if I could understand my own patterns, I feel like I could heal them. And so that's what happened. I started putting clothes on hold instead of buying them and walking away and started seeing what that felt like and understanding like I totally forgot about the things I put on hold. Right. And so I started using that language. And so about 20 so years ago, I created 6 simple rules that I started teaching my clients instead of putting them on diets. And here we are.
Oh my God. It's very juicy because I can feel myself through all of those comments. First of all, I have a few like paradigm shifts through what you're saying, right? Like, just the idea that you were taught that this works a certain way, and this
Yeah.
is what you were taught like in higher education, and then you came to find out that it's not a one size fits all formula by any stretch.
Yes.
And also it's interesting that you, and I just want to acknowledge, you driving to UCLA hospital as a child and then making that unconscious or conscious connection that if I'm sad, I can shop becomes what later becomes like what you call a shopping problem. Although I like to shop. So I'm like, what do you mean by problem? I want to understand that.
Best
And I am
question.
going to follow up and ask you that, like, how do you know if you have a shopping problem versus you just like to shop? Because I think that that is kind of the beginning of where this story is for you. But the fact that you then went on to see that there is something really deep in our wiring, um, that if we can start to have that true noticing and true self-honoring, maybe then we can really systemically heal our relationship with food. So it's very powerful to hear you say that comment about the client you had who, had a really deep trauma, which of course would then put her into potentially a dysregulation around many things, but it could be definitely food related as well. So you notice that, and then you've now done something about it. But we're going to unpack what those 6 simple steps are, because I'm sure that anybody who's seen an ad for Ozempic is tempted, and I'm sure what you have to say is a little bit better for us in general. Not that I'm a doctor, I don't know, but it sounds like maybe you have something worthwhile that we should all be listening to. Before we get there, let's just kind of understand, what was a shopping problem? How did you know? How did you start to become aware, like, this isn't just me loving shopping, this is a problem?
Yeah. Okay. I love to shop. And so we can go shopping anytime. And like shopping to me actually doesn't mean buying things anymore. It actually means just having the experience of, being in the smells and the
Best.
lights and the new things and all that newness. I love it, love it. And I like nice things. I really do. But every one of my papers was written on like the Nordstrom half, yearly sale and the sound of cash registers. You know that? Oh my God, what a great sound. And really like every one of my friends told me that I shopped a lot and that I shopped when I shouldn't be shopping. And I really kind of just chalked it up to or made excuses that I need this or I like something new. And it took me years to understand that it's okay to sit in discomfort and not to have another white t-shirt and that I actually didn't need another purse or you know, a pair of shoes that I was visualizing my future self wearing. I'm not entirely sure, but everything that I've worked on is really that space between the thought and the action, which is why you and I like once you and I can like really like spend hours and hours and hours, like there is so much in that space and understanding why we rationalize irrational thoughts. So a shopping problem is spending on when you don't have the money to, or when it's hurting someone or hurting yourself. That's what it is. And if that doesn't exist, I don't think that's a problem.
It's interesting because even when you said earlier on that you would put things on hold and walk away, like my body felt upset for you. I was like, oh, like that feeling of like, just sitting in the discomfort, like you said. And I think that it's really so interesting. Just this week, I was having a conversation with my daughter's guidance counselor at school, and I have a whole dissertation I could give on why school and the system of school is not conducive to any human. Like, it's sit down, be quiet, and stay still. I don't know anybody who's like thriving there. And also, she said to me, she heard me, she really heard, she understands. And she said, I wonder if, in addition to us trying to understand how to be supportive to your daughter in school, could you make a case for the fact that leaning into what's uncomfortable in her life, as opposed to running from it, is actually a bigger task and it's a more important issue? Because she's like, you're right. I get it. Believe me, I'm pro kid. I'm here to try to do what I can within the system. But she goes, I noticed from you, you really want her discomfort to just stop.
Mm,
And I wonder if in this discomfort, she can learn to advocate for herself. She
wow.
can learn to lean in. She can learn a lot of things because life might sometimes require her to sit in discomfort. And it's so, the gravity of that is so big because really, truly, if we can sit in discomfort just long enough to make a conscious choice, our whole life is going to change.
Yeah.
And we can then stop self-abandoning.
Yeah.
And there's so much that that can affect. And for some people, it is shopping. And for some people, it is food. And for some people, it is the internet. And for some people, who knows what it is?
Gambling.
Right. But ultimately, it comes back to, do you know how to find yourself and what's happening within you? Or do
Yes.
you just react from a place that's unconscious, which isn't
And
serving you?
I would even add that you're really not there to tell her how to do it, right? She's got to come to a place of understanding how to use her own inner power or strength in that moment, right? And like the definition of mindfulness is to know where your mind is without judgment, right? To be in acceptance of the moment we're in. We don't have to like the moment we're in. You just have to accept the moment. And the best thing about life is those moments don't last. We get a new emotion every 90 seconds.
What? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love how it's so data driven too, because it's so interesting to understand human behavior through the lens of the data that we now have. So, okay, let's go into the food situation because this is really something I think is top of mind for everybody. I think everyone I know is spending some bandwidth on their weight.
Yeah.
I think because our culture is obsessed with a certain body type. So you wrote a book called This Is What You're Really Hungry For, which is such a great title. But before we get into it even further, you just talked about like your 6 simple rules, which I'm sure are also in the book. Help us understand how to start to recreate a better, healthier relationship with food.
Well, this is why I think you're such an important part of every single person's journey. You can't really start healing your relationship with food if you don't know where your mind is, right? It has to be in the moment your body's in. Because, let me backtrack a little bit. Every single person develops emotional triggers in the first 6 years of your life. Now, I know your family and I know your home, and it's a loving home. It doesn't mean that your 3 daughters are skating by without emotional triggers. No matter what, every single person gets 3 emotional triggers that they get to 3 to 5 that they get to work on for the rest of their life. And then if they experience something like trauma, they develop a new one. So, I mean, for me, I don't think 9/11 is really, I'm ever going to be okay in a movie theater without, like thinking about how I'm going to get out of the movie theater, right? Even though that's not 9/11, that created that trauma for me. COVID, every single one of us is like emotionally triggered. Some of us wanted to leave the house, some of us didn't want to leave the house. There's vaccines involved. Like there's so many emotional triggers. Every single person has one from COVID, right? And anytime we experience trauma, we get a new one. And so our rational mind knows that food is fuel. It's our irrational mind that thinks food is fun, comfort, joy, entertainment, or the enemy. And so anytime that we're thinking about food, We have to recognize it's an alarm going off. And if we can take a deep breath, see why the alarm is going off, know where our mind is when that alarm is going off, and put it back in our body, then we can actually say, oh, the reason I'm thinking about food is because my chest is tight or because my stomach is growling. And then we know, okay, we're supposed to eat when our stomach is growling. If my chest is tight, I don't think food is the appropriate response to that. But now I have an opportunity to really understand what to do when my chest is tight, right? So, right off the bat, we're finding our mind so we can create that fail safe right off the bat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you said to me the other day that 47% of the day we sleepwalk. And
Yeah.
it just like really stuck with me because I do spend time teaching this in my own way and talking about it. And it's uncanny to me, just the fog almost that people live Groundhog Day every single day because the mind is this unruly, repetitive, very out of touch, like screensaver that just like repeats thoughts in your head all day long. And it's not, none of it's coming from wisdom. It's just coming from this repetitive, whatever your mind believes will keep you safe, based upon probably very unhealthy survival skills that you
Yeah.
created. I mean, one of the ones you and I were talking about, because for those listening, Kim and I are friends, and I was like, I would love to trade time with each other and like sort of be a sounding board for each other around whatever we could help each other with, which is a really just unbelievably generous thing that you were like, sure. And we were talking about food for me, and I was telling you that I get really tired around like 4 o'clock, and then I'll like grab something to eat as if it will make me less tired, which usually whatever I choose to eat is like sugary and it doesn't actually make me less tired. But it's a feeling of like, well, this is my reward for being tired.
Yeah.
And I wound up becoming conscious of that. And so for the first time in 20 years since I've needed to do this, I just booked surgery for my sinuses and went to see a doctor. And the doctor was like, oh, your septum is S-shaped. You don't breathe through your nose. Your nose is completely ornamental. It doesn't function. Are you tired during the day? I go, yeah. He goes, because you don't breathe at night and you're
Right.
nitric oxide and this. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been so sleepwalking that I wasn't even the level of self-neglect, okay, of how tired I've been. And of course, I have 3 kids and I work at it, but like, no, like at the base level, I'm not getting enough sleep because I broke my nose when I was 12 and I never fixed it. So then you're asking me this question, which at first was such an uncomfortable question. You're like, why are you eating that? Do you
Oh,
want it? No, you said it in a nice way. You're like, do you want that? Are you hungry for that? Or is there another reason? I'm like, well, I'm tired and I want a treat. And you're like, okay. And it's like when we got to the base of it, there was an invitation. And you were like, what if you asked yourself, what do you really need? And it led to, I mean, it makes me want to cry. Like, I'm finally going to take care of myself. And this, by the way, in my case, this was actually like, it's a very serious issue, which I didn't realize over time how serious it is to not be able to breathe through your nose. I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous to not be able to breathe and think it's fine. But you led me to that.
you're going to sleep so well and everything is just going to be so much better because when we're tired, we're irrational.
And by the way, that's only one of the gifts that's been coming out of our conversations, but it is uncomfortable to dive in. Now, why is it that it's uncomfortable to even lean into this? Why wouldn't it be like, oh, I'm finally looking at the ways I can actually answer what I'm actually hungry for? Like, help us understand the resistance to taking care of what we actually need rather than just blindly band-aiding it with what's not working.
I mean, there's shame there. There's a lot of shame there. I mean, we all have it in different ways. I mean, you talk about it with money all the time. You talk about it in many different ways. But the fact that not that I didn't mean to point out a flaw or point out something that you maybe even felt flawed, but all I was doing was seeing something where I'm like, this is happening. You're eating quickly, you're rushing through it. And you know, as we get closer into like rule number 3, you'll see like we say we love food. We do. People go out there and they say they're foodies. And you know, I would love to put a mirror in front of these foodies and say, okay, let me see you really enjoy the food. And the reality of food is that it's very, very boring. And that creates a reaction too.
Walk us through the 6 steps and then we'll have like a framework.
Okay, so rule 0 is to know where your mind is. And one quick trick that I have everybody do is to repeat after me. So they say, where is my body? I say, where is my body? Everybody repeats it. And then they say, it's right here. They recognize that it's here. And then I say, where is your mind? And then actually everybody can go and find their mind and they can recognize that it's wherever, but we repeat this until they know that their mind is in this moment. Okay. And then they can recognize their hunger level, just like their peeing level if they have to pee. So I always compare it to peeing. Like we don't wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, I'm going to have to pee 8 times today and I don't know where those toilets are. I'm going to freak out. No, we totally trust that we will find a toilet when we need one. And sometimes it gets uncomfortable, but we have survived all of those moments. That's important to remember because hunger is a message just like having to pee. And we have no idea where our bladders are, but we totally know where our bladders are. So if we're not sure what we're feeling, don't do anything. Just leave it alone. Okay. So once we've established that we're hungry, rule number 1 is that you eat when you're hungry. You take your normal portion, you cut it in half, you wait 15 minutes, and you come back to see if you need more. So what's actually happening in this rule is that if you and I go to the restaurant and we have eggs and sausage and hash browns and toast, you and I better have the exact same portion because I'm going to be really pissed if you end up with more food on your plate than me. I don't know how much I'm going to need to eat, but that's the thing, right? And automatically we're assuming the chef knows how much we need or that a label on the back of a box is telling us what I need in that moment. No. It's our own personal responsibility to know what our body needs and when it needs it. And it's never going to be the same. Okay. So we take our normal portion, we cut it in half. That's me putting something on hold, trusting it's going to be right there if I need it. And there was a moment when I was trying to hang up the phone with my mom and I was really rushing. This is probably 15 years ago, maybe 20. And I'm like, I got to go. I got to go. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, Bloomingdale's is having a sale and I got to get there. And she started laughing at me and she said, you know, Kim, Bloomingdale's has a sale every week. And I was like, what? What? Is that true? And it was actually. And now there's the internet. And of course, we can get it everywhere. So maybe this conversation was even 25 years ago. And that's the same with like the eggs, the sausage, the hash browns, and the toast. We can get that every single morning. We can get it at any time of the day. We can make it ourselves. And so if we've restricted ourselves in any way, then there's a lot more fear. And as you and I have talked about, all the choices that we make in life come from trust or fear. And so if I trust myself and I eat when I'm hungry and I start with half, then physiologically what's happening is I'm allowing ghrelin, the hormone that is telling my body it's time to eat, and leptin, the hormone that's telling me I'm satisfied, to do their jobs, right? And so the conversation between ghrelin and leptin takes 15 minutes. So if we're eating everything under 15 minutes, we're overeating every one of our meals. And the problem is that if we're overeating, we won't be hungry in a couple hours. And we want to be hungry every couple hours because that's how we regulate our blood sugars.
What are the 6 steps? So find your mind, then
Eat when you're hungry, start with half. Rule number 2 is to eat what you love, but to make sure the food loves you back. So this is undoing like anything like food is healthy, it's good, bad. And it's really understanding, how do you feel? Are you inflamed? Can we work through that? Rule number 3 is to eat without distractions. So to recognize that we eat 30% more food because it's in front of us. We eat for cravings, we eat for distraction, but we should only eat because we're physically hungry. Rule number 4 is to get 10,000 steps because you need to move your body every single day in order to maintain the weight loss, or else what's the point? Rule number 5 is to drink 8 cups of water every day. And rule number 6 is to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And all of that is how we maintain our health.
Wow. So if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, I've tried that. Let's say at first then. So like I've tried that. I've been mindful. I've been beyond mindful. I've known exactly what I've been eating. I've known the calories. I've known this. I've plugged it into journals. I've walked 10,000 steps a day. I've drank 8 cups of water. I slept. I've eaten half a portion, less than half a portion, and I still can't lose weight and I'm still gaining it back or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What is
Two
your usual audit? Like, what do you
Yeah.
normally notice?
Well, first I'm thinking, have they gained and lost weight many times in their lifetime? Because for every 1 pound that you lose it as water, fat, and muscle. And for every pound you gain it as fat. So that makes you metabolically less active and fatter than when you first started. So you're going to not need to eat as much food and you're going to have a really hard time keeping the weight off. A woman's body fat should be between 18 and 24%, and a man should be under 18%. So that number really, really matters. And number two, it's not about calories in, calories out. It's about hunger. It's about why are you eating? And so I would assume that if somebody's saying, I've tried that and I can't lose weight, then I know that they're really trying it at about 60 to 70%. So I know that if you follow all 6 of my rules at 90%, you're losing weight. You're even losing weight if you're doing 80% of my rules. If you are following them at 70%, you're staying the same, and 60% you're gaining.
Hmm. What do you find with these 6 rules, having been working with so many clients, is the one that is the stickiest or people are most resistant to
The half, the
eating?
half. Yeah. And also, honestly, I can't, that is the fail safe of the whole thing right there. That's the fail safe, right? You get to eat anything you love when you're hungry, when you start with half. And a lot of people hear eat what I love. They're hearing cake and they're hearing candy, and they're not hearing the part where I said eat when you're hungry. And most people, when they're hungry, don't want candy and cake. And I also had lots of clients who have restricted themselves for candy and cake and only ate candy and cake for 3 weeks and lost weight because their bodies don't really know what we're eating. They're just accepting the calories and saying thank you. And if we're not hungry and they're still accepting the calories and saying thank you because they think that we're telling them that they need to save it for winter. Like what happens if you're not hungry and you eat a strawberry? Where does that strawberry go? It gets converted to fat. You get the vitamin C too, but your body is so efficient. It's so amazing. You and I both know there's like literally an entire universe with 43 trillion cells happening inside of our body. We have more electricity in our brain than the whole world, just in our own brain. That's incredible.
So I find this fascinating because for so many reasons, but one of the reasons is because about a year ago, I was working with a therapist and she said to me, I really want you to take yourself on a walk every day. And I made so many excuses. I was like, well, I live on the top of a hill. So either direction I go, I'm going to wind up really having, like it's an arduous walk. And it is the particular way back to my house. Either way it is a little bit of a push. It's not flat. And I also was like, well, I don't really have the time because my kids are home after school and I don't have help with them. So I'm not going to leave them for a walk. And it's too much of an arduous walk to ask them to go on. And in the end, I realized it had nothing to do with any of that. It was, there was such a deep, like unconscious block to just go and have that level of just being, not doing in
Yeah.
my day or feeling my feelings or whatever. There's a combination of things around it. Like I just didn't do it. And then I bought myself a Peloton treadmill and I was like, well, then this is what I'll do because it's right here and I can do it anytime. And I would just walk by it every single day. So I realized it had nothing to do with the hill. So I want you to speak to what is the giant boulder that we have to move in order to psychologically have the safety to even do these things because they're not that hard. It's just that in order to lean in, you have to be willing to accept the mission. And there must be, and I'm sure you have so many examples of this, but there just must be a lot of resistance very often to accepting the mission to get healthy.
Okay, so I have two quotes that we're going to talk through. And the first one, I think it's going to hit you. And it's from Perks of Being a Wallflower. And this is the one that I pretty much share to almost every one of my clients on their first appointment. And it says, we accept the love we think we deserve. We accept the love we think we deserve. Now, we're talking self-love. We're not talking about anything other than the way that we treat ourselves. And we do have to meet ourselves where we're at. And then we have to show the world how to love us and how much we love ourselves. And I was a sick kid. I don't want to feel sick. And I know all the ways in which I don't have to, and all the ways in which my body can feel healthy. And I know that moving your body lessens your aches and pains, and energy makes energy. And I want to feel my best every single day. And so I'm going to make choices that are going to come from that place.
It like totally brought tears to my eyes because that is very sobering. And it's very, I mean, it cuts so deep, right? We accept the love we believe we deserve. Is that what you said?
I'm laughing about a conversation you and I had where I'm like, what'd you say? Say it to me again, like 20 times.
That's the shortcut. That's what I had said to her.
We accept the love we think we deserve. We
Yeah.
accept the love we think we deserve.
Yeah. So it is really quite fascinating. And in my case, what I came to understand is that in my particular circumstance growing up, because my mom was sick, she was struggling with depression, anorexia, being suicidal. I felt it was selfish to have needs because I wanted to keep her okay. So I was more focused on that. So it's just like I'm not wired that way. And I'm really good at loving people because she's like, this is true. Because it's actually, I mean, people are so lovable and I accept people with all their flaws and brokenness because it's what makes us so beautiful. But I forget to like really, really make sure that as much as going out is coming in, like for myself. So the good news is I did break that pattern and then I started walking every day and I loved it so much. I started walking twice a day in the morning and the night. But then, Kim, you know what happened? This is like related, but not related. I mean, it's all related ultimately, but I started to run a mile a day on the treadmill. And my husband's like, you have no business running. You're not in the shape of a runner. Why would you do that? I'm like, I'm in so much pain. And now for weeks, my hips are like screaming at me because I don't know why I thought I could run every day all of a sudden because it was really hard on my body. I thought it was like, I saw all these other cute girls at the gym running. And I was like, it's just running. It's walking faster.
First of all, you need red light therapy immediately to help with any pain. For sure. And also we need to check your shoes and you might need like a little orthotic to go in there.
It's probably all the things. And also I'm 45 and I now know
No,
that
no, never. No, not age.
well, I was told that because of menopause, your hips sometimes
Oh,
get
yeah,
this
yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah,
inflammation or
fine.
something.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I
But
need to
you're
get
gonna
back to
still need red
walking.
light. Red light will help with that because that actually bursts new life into your cells and
All
your
right, I need to get the red light.
everybody needs.
Anyway, the love that we give ourselves. So you said you were going to say two quotes. One was the wallflower. So perks of being a wallflower. What's the other one?
Okay, so we're gonna just when you hear the word illness, I just want you to think of like disordered eating instead, okay? Or how you can use any word. You can even put money in here, like when you're thinking about it. But if this illness right now feels like a cage, Please try to hear me. The door is unlocked and you are free to go. So here is what I know. Here is what I know. We stay in the cage because we have not decorated what it looks like outside. And again, you and I've had so many fun conversations about imagination. But if I said to you, Cathy, I signed you up for Soul Cycle, I put you in the first row and you're going to go and you're going to have the best time. And you're like, wait a minute, I've never been like, wait, I don't know what that's like. That's scary. I don't want to be in the first row, front and center. But then if I was like, this is how it's going to be in dark. I'm going to be next to you. Your other friend's going to be next to you. It's going to be so fun. No one's going to even, once we start actually figuring out what it looks like outside of the cage, then it's easier to tiptoe and to recognize we're safe out there. But we don't feel safe. So we stay in the discomfort of
Ugh.
what we're comfortable in because we know exactly how that's going to be.
Oh my God, that also totally made me cry. Because I relate it to everything that we stay stuck in. And so, you know, I haven't, of course, I want to have an even better relationship with my physical health, and food is part of that. But for me, it's shown up in other ways. Like it showed up for you with shopping. It showed up for me with work. I remember having a conversation with a friend 3 years into my podcast. It's I was like crushing it, so to speak, right? Making millions of dollars. I'm like so proud of myself. I'm able to like be the mom without the nanny and make the money and all whatever it is, right? And she said to me, the scary thing she said about being a workaholic is that if you were an alcoholic, somebody at some point who loves you might say, "Hey, I'm concerned." But she said, in your case, people go, "Oh my God, you're crushing it. Oh
Mm.
my God, keep going. Oh my God, how many millions of downloads did you get? What house did you buy? Where are you sending your kids to summer camp? Oh my gosh, oh my God, you're crushing it, crushing it." And that was very helpful for me, because she said it's still, it doesn't take away that that's not healthy, right? It's just you're getting rewarded and praised for doing something that's disordered. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, right? And so I started to change at that point, and now it looks very different. And word to my listeners, the more ease I brought into my life and my business, actually, the more my business did well. It needed me to leave it alone,
Yeah.
actually. But I cry when you say that because it's so self-evident. It's like the cage door is open, but you don't set yourself free. And you don't set yourself free. And I love what you said. It's like because you're not clear. It feels so unknown to set down what's familiar. So you'll just keep choosing it. And I have this with people who come to our retreats or people who are talking to me, our listeners on email or Zoom or DM, whatever it is. And it's like, at the end of the day, do you really want what you say you want? Like, are you willing to feel good? And the answer is really shocking because
Yeah.
sometimes they're not willing to feel good,
Yeah.
because feeling good means letting go of grief, pain, anger, you know what I mean? Like stepping into it's like more familiar, and there's something that feels a little, we get addicted to pressure and struggle.
Yeah. And a lot of people are people pleasers. And so they're not really paying attention to what their own needs are. I mean, you see it all the time with women who out for dinner and they didn't want to have a drink and they didn't want tapas, but they end up with a drink or two and they end up eating things they didn't want to eat and don't feel like they have any control. They have no control over what they say yes to.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
what do you do if somebody is coming to you like a client and then you're like, okay, well, we've now had 8 or 10 sessions and the cage door is open, but you just keep saying no. Like, what do you do when you finally realize that they're not setting themselves free?
That's a good question. I do ask them, do I have permission to help you? Because you're right. And like they could hear me, but their mind is somewhere else. And truly, I need them to be in this moment. I need them to be with me. And sometimes I could spend 15 minutes with somebody who's very anxious, just reciting, where's my body? It's here. Where's my mind? And they can't find it. But then after 15 minutes, you see them take a deep breath and they're here.
Yeah.
And we all need to be practicing knowing where our mind is. Why are you scared that I told you to start with half? Why are you scared? Like, I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm not even saying don't eat it, right? Like, why do you feel scared? Let's go through that and let's recognize that you're actually safe. And the truth is, that's all our mind needs to know at any given time. That's the mind's job, is to ensure your safety in the most pleasurable way. And it has just found that food is more fun than the way that you feel.
It's interesting. You and I were talking about this, and I said to you that one of the things that I've noticed is that the thing I don't fuss with a lot and overthink, it just does fine. You know, like I don't give my kids a lot of scrutiny. And then I have really good kids. They're nice, they're behaved. The one thing they do is they argue with each other. But to me, there's just a lot of ease around that for me. And I hear parents like, but there's just a lot of like overdoing it, I feel like sometimes, or with money, for sure, people are just like constantly looking at their bank account. And like my husband laughs at me. He's like, "Are you MC Hammer?" Like he literally, that's a direct quote. He goes, "Are you?" I'm not sure. I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "The amount of cares that you give about money, it's just like, are you a rapper who just like walks in and it's bottle service for everyone?" And I'm like, "You're hilarious." And he's like, he goes, "I'm nuts. I don't sleep at night. How much money? You don't even notice it. You don't look at it. You know." I'm like, "But don't you notice? Like, I'm the one making all the money." He's like, "I know. And it bothers me. I don't get it." And all he does is run a report. Like, I don't even know the login half the time to how to log in and see it. I forget it. I don't care.
Right.
And somehow it just functions well when I stop bothering with it. And then I've had friends who, with their food, it's just like nonstop being over in like, they're just overly concerned. Like, excuse me, how many calories is that? Oh my God, what is it? Oh, what time is it? No, I can't eat. No, that it's like, and then they're never in a state of, I don't know, like I don't think
Yeah.
it's a pleasant experience for them. Even if they're thin, they're still bothered. So how is that healthy? You know what I mean? Like, so in
Yeah.
what way can we learn to trust and let go and just allow our food to do what it's supposed to do without this over analyzing, which ultimately I think leads to how much bandwidth every day do women, let's just say, have around their food? What you could be doing with that time and energy.
I mean, honestly, this is such a loaded conversation. This is like a 10-hour podcast just in itself, right? Only in the fact that I also have three daughters and my 15-year-old is sitting around her lunch table and all her friends are comparing their protein intake. Now, when they were 14, they didn't talk about protein. And so what's happening is they're getting these projections from the rest of the world and they're intaking it as their own. And suddenly they think that they need to be paying attention when they were totally
Yeah.
fine before. So that's like one thing is we have to be very careful of our messaging and our language and what we say and think about food in front of every single person because we don't know what emotionally triggers them and we don't know what somebody is going to interpret as their own and not be able to tell the difference. But you talk a lot about how to get ease, and it is the same. And the truth is that when somebody is worrying about calories or protein, you're actually talking about anxiety. And if we're anxious, which my baseline is anxiety, like it's like my husband's baseline is anxiety. We're just anxious people, but also like I do a lot of practicing bringing my mind back to this moment, right? And that's resilience and being more and more resilient. So if my mind, and like, let's think about this. You did not ask your heart to beat. You did not ask your lungs to breathe. And you had 100,000 beats yesterday in your heart. And your mind had 60,000 thoughts yesterday in response to what you see, smell, feel, hear, and touch, just your surroundings. So you and I are having a conversation and your mind is still thinking. So if our mind is kind of like a train station, our job is to learn how to stay on the platform of the train station. So we just let those trains come in and we do not engage. We don't jump into a train. Now I'm thinking about calories and now I'm wondering how many calories are in this, whatever it is. The reality is you just pull yourself back, you take a deep breath, you recognize that you're safe. We don't have to know what's happening in 1 minute, but in this single second, we're actually physically safe. So you stay in this moment, you recognize that this train came into the station and you just let it pass. You do not engage. But if you happen to engage with that train and now we're just in California and suddenly you're on the Florida train and you're like thinking about calories, but somehow you ended up 5 hours away, what ends up happening is you need to take deep breaths. You need to actually relax your body. It's just anxiety. Come back to this moment. Don't engage with those thoughts.
I'm asking this question because I get this question a lot. And I know that I'm smiling because you and I can relate to it, not with food, but with other things. People will say to me, what if I've found my way to something that's better with this, but my husband is like so disordered around his thinking, or let's say I'm working on abundance and ease and he's in such scarcity around money. And then it throws me into, how do I live with that? So if you're married to someone and they are having their own relationship with food or their own relationship with even their own body image or whatever it is, and you want to stay in your lane and be okay, how can you do your thing without being pulled out of alignment by this
Yeah.
person?
I mean, I love to use my imagination and I love to imagine that I just can like put my higher self or dragon energy into myself and just kind of like become a little bit higher energy. But if my husband, whose normal baseline is anxiety, comes into my energy and it catches me off guard, I could say a couple things to Matt. Do you want to spend 5 minutes just on this like rotation of thoughts? Do you want me to give you any guidance? Or when are you going to take a deep breath, right? Sometimes it looks like that. And sometimes it looks like me walking out of his energy field because I can't be around it. But if Matt and I were not in alignment, then we should probably be going for a walk or having a conversation about how his energy is affecting my energy and how my energy is affecting his energy. And so we can meet each other and help each other. That's what we would do. That's how I would handle it.
Yeah, it's helpful because I think it's a real thing for people, and they need tools to deal with that.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, when you say what are you really hungry for, what do you think is there an answer to that? What we're really hungry for?
Yeah, I
What
think
is
it's
it?
it's peace. We want peace around food and our weight and our health. That's what I think it is. What do you think it is?
Wow, that's such a beautiful question. I love that answer. I Now that you said that, I'm like, I want to choose that as my answer. I think I probably would have said what we're really hungry for is it's a similar, it's like a state of wholeness. It's like a state of being where there's equanimity and there's self-love and there's just a sense of wholeness. But I think peace is a great way to sum that up. What do you want people to take away from this conversation besides buying the book? And I'm going to now ask you about some of the things that you do where people can work with you, but what's something you want people to maybe do today or think about today that could help them on the step to recovering their peace?
That's a great question. I think I want people to know it's easier than they think it is, and that whatever they did in the past was in the past, and that they get to, start a new chapter in the moment they're in over and over, because ultimately this is a practice. If they're striving for perfection, they're going to miss it altogether.
When people get to a point where they're so fed up and they just want to give up on this conversation completely and say, I'm just going to accept my body the way that it is. I'm going to eat Cheetos. I'm just going to stop because
Yeah.
I'm giving up. Like I can't do this anymore. What would you say to that person?
I would say give it 90 seconds and rethink this and add the Cheetos to your lunch. Start with half and eat Cheetos at every single one of your meals. And do not judge the fact that you're eating Cheetos. And eventually, you won't be adding Cheetos to your meal because you're going to trust that you can have Cheetos.
Oh, so it's coming from restriction. They're telling themselves, I'm so sick of restricting myself.
Yeah, it feels hard, and our brain wants to have fun. It won't let us do hard things. It will shut right down. It will throw a temper tantrum. But, the paradox of the whole thing is that the people, and like case in point with you and the way that you talk about money and teach money, the people who are actually living peacefully with my six simple rules or with their health or who are exercising or who are doing all the things, they're actually having so much fun because they don't feel sick. They don't feel tired. Not every day, right? But they are having so much fun. That's the paradox. They're not finding it hard. They're finding not doing it hard.
That's really cool because that is really different to think about how your mind doesn't want you to do things that are hard. So it'll give you a temper tantrum. But if you remember that there's so much fun in feeling good, yeah, that's a really nice reframe. Okay, so what is the thing that people can do if they want to work with you and they're like, well, I love everything that she said, but I don't trust that I can just do this myself? Like, what are the different ways that people can work with you?
There are so many now. I see clients privately. I also see clients in group. And coming very soon, I'm going to have a membership program where I can see you a couple times a month. And I also have a master class available. And what else?
Okay.
Of course,
How can they find all of those things?
they can find me everywhere on all the socials at Kim Shapira Method.
Okay, we'll put the link to that. Kim, thank you so much. This is like really juicy and important work. And maybe we'll have you back because you and I are working on this together a little bit with my own habits. And so we can see what progress we make. It's really a breath of fresh air. I know that a lot of people listening can probably relate to so much of this. I've done so many things since I felt like I was 10 pounds more than I wanted to be. And I've hired the trainer and nothing's happened. Or I've gone to the gym and nothing's happened. Or I've like bought the meal prep kits that just come to your door and then not even eaten them and thrown them. Like, I've done so many things. And, um, the hardest road ever is like the road just back to yourself and like really listening. And you've been helping me like kind of peel back like what's actually going on. And yeah, we deserve our own attention. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing it.
I had the most fun. I don't even want to leave. Thank you for having me.
It's a blast. We'll put the link for you guys so you can go find Kim and buy the book and all the things.
Thank you.